You're listening to episode 163 of the D6 podcast.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 podcast. Here's your hosts, Ron Hunter and Jeremy Lee.
This is the family ministry podcast that helps you connect the church and home. And I don't just say it, Ron, I mean it.
I agree with you, man, and you do mean it because you're going to be talking about it today.
Hey!
You know, I was just talking with our producer that I wanted to come in here because David is interviewing you. You know what song I wanted to play?
What's that?
Come on, take a guess. Yep, nope. I can see your thoughts. Nope.
Every song I want to say has probably got some edge of inappropriateness, so I'm going to just not say
That's
it.
exactly right. So when I heard you were going to be interviewed, I wanted to play the bumper music from one of my favorite composers, John Williams, and the theme to Superman.
Yeah, but they shut you down, didn't they?
They did shut me down. So I told
Producer
him,
Brett was like, no way, we're not paying the copyright violation fees for that.
So I said, you know what? We may not play it, but I'm going to talk about I'm going to play it.
Can he hum it, Brett?
Can I go? Can I do that?
No?
Yeah,
Okay.
we really
No.
can't. But
He said,
you know what?
I can't
So you
hum
know
it.
what? You've got to tuck your cape back away. Just take the cape off and fold it up and set it aside, Jeremy.
What's going on in this country when I can't hum? I mean, goodness.
You can if you want to pull out your wallet and pay John Williams.
Well, he's a good man.
He is a good man.
I saw a YouTube video of people playing instruments outside of his house. They went and played his music outside of his house.
Yeah.
2 band students, and he came out and greeted them. Y'all can
Oh,
look it up
that's
on YouTube.
fun. That's fun.
Okay, anyway, John Williams.
Yes.
Way better than our guest today, but we're just going to go with... Look, listen, we have a tight budget, just like all of you guys. You're ministers. You have to, make your budget work, right? And sometimes it just pinches a little bit, and, we sometimes just have to make do. So today...
We are not making do. We're pinching our budget, not playing John Williams, but we are featuring Jeremy, who has had a parenting ministry for many, many years and brings incredible content to this podcast. I'm thankful you're here, Jeremy.
Oh.
And I'm glad that David has interviewed you for today.
Thank you. Well, we are going to have fun with that in just a second. But before we move on, I have got to talk about John Forrest. Now, John Forrest is... you guys have kind of discovered him, and he is, I would call him your captain of fun, but I can't really use that title anymore because he is now your captain of fight, which is his new book.
That's right.
And I think we need to make this distinction with our listeners because our listeners should, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, John Forrest is a name you're going to recognize because he's your game guy. He has a book of games, a really cool book. He comes on the podcast, gives lots of game suggestions, super funny. Last time I interviewed him, we called his mom. I mean, we just love to have fun. But what people don't realize is that John is an incredibly intelligent minister with decades of experience who brings so much to the plate. And he has put out, we have to tell our listeners, he's putting out a new resource, a study guide for that you can do individually or with a small group, based for young men, really.
Yes.
And it's called Fight. So
That's
tell
right.
us more about it.
So for young men or, teenage guys, there are battles that we face in life, and John has mentored and coached so many. I mean, let me pause here. John, when we think of the fun guy, do not stereotype him as being all fun. He has a significantly serious side. He just uses the fun to build a moment, build a relationship, and then he's able to step into that world and go, hey, let's talk about so-and-so. And he is very, very insightful, and he's using this book to show that way that young men face the battles of life. How do they face them? What do they go into it with? And he uses some biblical examples of fight in there and gives these young men confidence to go, you know what, life sometimes is tough. but I can rise to this occasion and make a difference. So I'm very pleased with John's work here, and I think people are going to be blown away by how helpful it will be to young men who are dealing with difficulties.
So the new study is called Fight. Fight Like Your Life Depends on It. Great title by John Forrest. Actually, John D. Forrest. He's put that initial in the middle to sound really, smart.
So if you read his book, Help My Game Stink, you're going to love Fight Like Your Life Depends on It. You need to pick up both of those.
And they can be picked up and checked out at d6family.com. And the topic that I'm bringing today is one of my favorite topics because parents, for ministers, can be one of two things. They can either be opponents or partners.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, especially when we're new into ministry, we see them more as opponents because maybe they aren't trusting us and we take the offense to that. And then this idea of difficulty, a difficult relationship develops. And so we start to see them as difficult parents. And really one of the best work that we do at Parent Ministry, the ministry that I founded, is we try to help ministers change their mindset and say, hey, we've got to get past the difficult and see that if we just do a few easy things, we can really leverage this into a partnership that a term I use from you that I learned from you that I use often is multiplies instead of adds.
Yes.
And that is incredibly true. So that is what we're going to be talking about after the break. I'll be back when David Jones will be interviewing me on difficult parents after the break. We'll talk to you then.
The real fight begins when you make your commitment to Christ. I'm John D. Forrest, author of Fight Like Your Life Depends on It. Fight is a 6-week Bible study that will help you successfully navigate life's most difficult battles. In Fight, you'll step into the ring with 5 biblical heroes who chose to fight when faced with adversity. They exemplify the fighting spirit that Christians must have to survive their daily walk. Learn to succeed in battle like Jonathan's armor bearer, or Mary of Bethany, David's mighty men, Gideon, and David the shepherd and king. You'll also sit ringside to see what a Christian warrior does when they fall. The ultimate goal is fighting to closer conform to the image of a holy God who fought and won the war for us. Get ready to fight like your life depends on it.
All right, D6 Podcast. Right now, joining me today is someone that you all know very, very well, and he really needs no introduction, even though he probably deserves one.
Stop it.
But joining me now is the famous...
Not famous.
The incomparable...
D-list famous.
So he says, Jeremy Lee is here today, and I feel a little weird introducing you because you have done this so many times. We've kind of flipped positions here.
Yes.
How does it feel to be on the other side of the microphone?
It's super, super fun. I have interviewed you before, though, and there's no way I'm going to match up to that. I'm going to try my best, though.
We'll see what happens. I have great faith in you. But
you say famous. I am famous at the D6 conference because a lot of our listeners come. By the way, if you haven't come, I can't help but say this. They have to go to d6conference.com and sign up.
That is true, yes.
I get a bonus every time I mention that. I'm just kidding. But when I'm in the elevator at D6 conference, people don't know what I look like, right? And so I'll say something, and they'll be like, wait a second. Are you the dude on the podcast? It's the only time I feel famous.
Very cool.
The only time.
Sometimes I describe you as the guy whose kids were on Double Dare. That's how some people know you.
This is true. And just this week, my family was on commercials on Nickelodeon.
What?
Yeah. For those of you who are not my Facebook friends, my Double Dare came to Nashville, and they were at the TPAC for like a live show. My family randomly got selected. So exciting. My wife and my son. My youngest son went up there. They competed. They won. They won $700. And they just so happened to be filming the promo for the live tour that night. And as they're running commercials, they're featuring my son and my wife. So, I mean, it's incredible. They're like more famous than me.
That's very cool. And it was no small feat. Like Mark Summers was actually there, wasn't he?
The legit Mark Summers.
Yes, the Mark Summers.
It's as good as imagined meeting him. It was because I paid the money to go back and meet him. My kids were like, "Who is this old guy?" They didn't know. Wow. I didn't care. I hugged him. We did that because he's Mark Summers. Double Dare.
That's incredible.
You watched it, right?
The show or your performance?
No, I guess both.
Oh yeah, the show. Absolutely. I still watch it. The new version. I love it. Yeah.
Why did they bring in the 20-something-year-old girl to?
I think Mark must be busy. But I mean, Pat Sajak and Alex Trebek are still doing their jobs. So,
for those of you who don't know, if you haven't seen the new version, they brought in some young girl to and now Mark's the wise old announcer guy. I don't agree
He's
with
the guy
that.
with the dad jokes. That's where he comes in.
So, in essence, for the D6 podcast, that's kind of what's happened. I'm the old Mark Summers, and you're the chic little 20-year-old person to come in and do all these interviews.
I wish I was in my 20s.
They're like, hey, get the old fart out of the way before. Can I say that on D6 podcast? The editors will edit it out if I can't. Did you have questions? Are we doing an interview?
Yeah. We're actually leading into that because we were talking about dad jokes going into dads and going into parents. We just took a long way to get there. But we really are talking about parents today. And
yes, we
can
are.
Go along with Double Dare here. We're talking about dealing with difficult parents. Now, this probably only applies to 0.01% of our listeners. I mean, and if you're listening to this, we're not talking about you.
Nope.
But if you're in ministry, you've probably dealt with this. Before we actually get into, the nuts and bolts of this, what are some of the craziest things that you have heard from parents or that parents have done or things you've had to deal with in ministry that you can say?
I got a list. I got a list. And a lot of it involves my mistakes, so we need to understand that because, difficult usually equals angry, and usually it's because I did something to make them angry. So here's my list. How about this? The first trip I ever took, I took a group of kids to Memphis. I was in Jackson, Mississippi. We went to Memphis, Tennessee. There was a girl who forged the parent's signature. So I took their kid to Memphis, Tennessee without their permission. She snuck out of the window. When I got back from the trip, the police were in the parking lot, and there was a difficult parent just waiting there, wanting to understand why I kidnapped their daughter. So taught me a great big lesson about parent ministry right there. That's kind of how I opened out the gate. How about this? How about my executive pastor at one of my churches calling me in and saying, we got an email today from a parent that you were at the movie theater and they say you accidentally bumped into them and shoved them into the wall and didn't even say, excuse me, and now they would like to address you about that. And I had no memory of this. So I've got these accusations. How about when the guest speaker came in and started talking, he was talking about sex, and he went way into detail to the point where I was getting texts from difficult parents during his speech. Before the speech was over, I was already addressing all the fires that he had put out, or that he had built that I had to put out after he left town. Man, we could just keep going. I have so many mistakes, failures, and frustrations where I have triggered parents, rightfully so, and we've created difficult scenarios.
Wow. Yeah, well, let's go to something a little more calm, I would say, but but it's just is difficult. I've been talking to a lot of youth pastors, and one of the things I've been hearing them say is they have parents at the church who believe the youth pastor is responsible for raising their kid, and they'll place blame on the youth pastor for their kid's lack of spiritual growth. So 2 parts to this question. First, what wisdom would you offer to the youth pastor who's dealing with parents like this? And second, how would you actually deal with those parents?
Yeah, unfortunately, parents sometimes think of church like a free babysitting service. In fact, it's not uncommon at all for the ministers that are a part of parent ministry. Some of our members will talk to me and say, we regularly see parents dropping their kids off to us and then going back out to their car, and they come back in with Starbucks cups. Oh. And they're like, hey, you know what? If we're helping their marriage, they have such good attitudes about it. I'm like, no, this is not cool. that they're just kind of using you and not really participating in the process with you. Because the idea here is that the discipleship process is really parents being the greatest spiritual influence in the lives of their kids, because we know that's true. But then also the church being that support, acting as that third party. So, ministers can get frustrated about that, or they can cast that vision. For example, the church that we go to on Mondays, my son, weirdly enough, is in youth group. He's old enough for youth group, but as far as the youth service, for him, it's not as much of a place where he connects spiritually. So we were talking about that. And the youth minister, Dakota, shout out to Dakota, he was willing. We engaged him. He was willing. He meets now with my son and a few of his buddies at Starbucks every Monday afternoon and disciples them 1-on-3. And then he sends us an email of what he teaches them, and then we follow up. And so we have now built this amazing connection. And here's what happened. It was because obviously I'm invested. I run parent ministry, right? But also Dakota was willing to bridge and partner with us. You know what he could have done? He could have said, you know what, Jeremy, I need your son to be more active and show up more on Wednesday nights. Because really, that's what helps Dakota keep his job, right? Yeah. To be able to count my son. And to be able to leverage my son's influence in the group, right? But instead, he was willing to engage with me and say, you know what's most important is I want to act as that third party. So here's something transferable for everybody who's listening. Then I'll let you ask your next question. I hate when guests do this to me. No, of course, it makes the job easier when they babble along, doesn't it? You
I'm learning. This is
but
good.
I call it the power of the third party. So if you're a minister here listening, this is something you can begin to work into your every time you're in front of parents, you can say something like this to them. You can say, hey, listen, there's no one whose words weigh more in the heart of your kid than your words as a parent, right? But there will come a time in their life when your words will become a little bit less and less because, they're trying to figure out if what you're saying is true. And they'll need a third party to verify whether or not what you say is true. And that is the perfect role for a youth minister, a small group leader, or someone from a church to engage. So really if we are talking to parents who are trying to that are kind of using us as a babysitting service, we can maybe cast a vision for them. If they share our faith, we can cast a vision for them of, we could be so much more to you. In fact, we could say the same things that you're saying, and yet they'll look at us and say, oh, that was a good point. But you're saying the same thing at home. But what we do is when we say it, we're reinforcing it from a third-party perspective. Let us be your third party. And the way you do that is connect with us, engage with us. Don't just use us.
That's really good. That's good stuff. Now let's go from one extreme to the other. Parent involvement in ministry is great. It really is. If you're in ministry, you know how important that is to have parent involvement and have the parents backing you. But we're also living in the day of helicopter parents, and now we're even calling them bulldozer parents for some of the things they do. What can church workers do about the parents who seem to be breathing down their neck nonstop and trying to tell them what to do every step of the way?
Yeah, my answer may surprise you, and it would be to listen to them. And here's why. We have all kinds of names. We call helicopter parents. We call bulldozer parents. We also can call mama bear, papa bear. But in the end, David, you being a new parent, I think you will connect with this. And I'll give you an example that I give at my parent seminars when I teach them at a church. I usually start with this. I say, hey, let's pretend you were at work all day. Not hard to imagine, right?
Right, yeah.
You come home from work, you watch the St. Louis Cardinals on TV, fall asleep in your recliner, and then in the middle of the night, you wake up to the smell of smoke. At the bottom of the stairs in your house now, there's an open flame fire happening in your house, you notice, and your baby is asleep upstairs. In that moment, what do?
You get the baby and get out of there.
That's right. You are going to put your life at risk easily without even thinking. You're going to become a flaming torch if you have to. You are going to do whatever it takes to get your baby out. Now, just as you're kind of processing that, can you feel the juices even start flowing a little bit?
Yeah, a little sweaty palms right now. I don't like that idea.
And it's just a silly scenario. When I talk about that in seminars, the dads usually start to lean forward like they're about to charge hell with a water pistol. And the moms just start to, like, they're sitting on go with their wide eyes. It's as if it's happening. And here's why we all get this emotional reaction just with the thought of our kids being in danger. It's because God has hardwired us to do whatever it takes and to love our kids with a fierce love, that agape love that they talk about in 1 Corinthians 13. You know, that love chapter, I think it's such a cool chapter, but really it doesn't describe human love. David, as cool as you are, there's no way you're going to love your wife at all times and forgive at all times. And just go through that and try to think about trying to live up to that kind of love. And you know, that is not describing human love. It's describing the love of God. But I do believe one of the most amazing gifts God gives us as a parent is we get as close as humanly possible to connecting to agape love. And because of that agape love, that's what fuels helicopter. That's what fuels bulldozer. And that's what fuels that protective instinct. And one of the things we should probably recognize is instead of fighting it, we should encourage it. And this is what I tell my ministers all the time that are members of parent ministry. I say to them, listen, the first thing you need to think about is not your amazing vision that you're casting to parents about how you're going to grow their kid biblically and turn them into this amazing Christian. What you need to tell them is, because when parents coming to you, they're not worried about that. There's two questions that are going on. The kid is wondering, is there anybody there that goes to my school? Is there anybody there that I know, because I'm scared to death? That's what they're thinking about. It's called their amygdala in the back of their brain, what flags when we get threatened, right? That's what they're thinking about. Am I about to be embarrassed and rejected? Is there going to be somebody there that I know? So if we answer that question for them, then they're willing to hear anything else we have to say. You know what the parents are thinking about? In fact, the Barna Group back in 2016 released stats on this that they asked, it's funny, they asked ministers, what's the first thing parents are thinking about when they come to your ministry? And the minister said, well, my discipleship process. And I'm telling you, they don't give a flip about your discipleship process at first. Eventually they will, hopefully. And if they don't, we should try to help them. But the 96% of the parents, the one thing they wanted to know is, will my kid be safe?
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
So the first thing we should be thinking about is safety. So David, I don't think we should fight them. I think we should feed the mama bears and papa bears. Feed them. So that means when you go to camp, tell them, say, hey, we have licensed and insured drivers that are bonded, and these buses that we're taking, they have been checked. Hey, when we go to the cabins, I'm going to give you a video tour and show you that I've thought about that there are no sketchy angles. And by the way, we don't just put one counselor with a group of kids. We put two. Why? Because we want those adults to actually be watching each other to just make sure, even though we background check all of our volunteers and no one comes to us to an overnight camp unless they have full background check, we just want to make double safe and make sure there are adults watching each other to just ensure safety. Hey, we have a no practical joke policy. That means that you don't, if something ever happens where a kid is made to feel inferior or made to feel dumb or treated in a bullying type of way, the person who does that goes home. That doesn't mean we reject that person. What we're saying to them is not acceptable. When you come back to us, and we want you to, just recognize that you don't get to do that anymore. We just don't allow it. There's a million different ways we can feed the mama bear and papa bear, and when you do, David, they become your undying fans. Listen to me, ministers who are listening. Feed the mama bear and papa bear. Guess what you get to do? Keep your J-O-B, because they will fight. I dare a pastor to try to fire you. If they believe that you'll keep their kids safe, they will fight for you.
That's some good stuff. That's some of the most practical information that I have heard in a long time.
Stop it, David.
No, seriously,
no, I didn't mean stop it. Keep going.
Okay, yeah. No, I really, some of you probably need to hit pause right now and rewind that and start taking notes on that, because, I'm processing this in my head and I'm like, yeah, I've never thought about that, but yeah, that's a good idea. We need to do that. Because some of those things
just go to ministrytoparents.com.
I was going to say, you either need to have a book or a website with this, and I'm sure you do. Yeah,
but look, man.
Those are small practical ideas, but those small things make a huge difference in parents.
Amen.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And it seems like these conversations that we're having with parents, or the difficult conversations we have to have with parents, they're a whole lot easier if we've already got that prior relationship with those parents. How can youth pastors, children's pastors, whoever it may be, how can they go about forming and building these relationships with parents?
Oh, man. I'm going to give you a tweetable quote. All right? You didn't even set me up for this. I didn't even know your questions, and look what has happened. Here, check this out. You can't control if they don't care, but you can control how you show them that you care. That's pretty good, right?
That's good stuff.
You can't control whether parents are going to care about your ministry, but here's what you can control. You can show them that you care. And here's a really practical way to get that done. Own the hallway. That's own the hallway. What I mean by this, you need to be set on go when you're walking up and down the church hallways on a Sunday or on a Wednesday when people are at the church. And you need to, every time you pass a parent of one of your kids, you need to stop them, look them in the eyes, and give a sincere compliment of what you have noticed and observed about their child or their student, and then just say, you guys are doing a great job raising that kid, and then walk away. I'm telling you. And this does not need to, like, it should take you 20 minutes to get from one place to another. Just do better time management and make that happen. And don't waste the hallway, because the hallway is where you can just truly show you care. Another place where you can show you care is the parking lot. Now, when I drop my kid off for school every morning, he goes to an elementary school, the principal is standing out there. Now, that principal runs that school. He doesn't have to be standing out there in the freezing cold. He doesn't have to be out there. Why is he out there? Because a couple of things. He wants me to see that he's present, because it makes me feel a little bit more safe. He wants me to see that he's active. He wants to watch me saying hello to the kids by name. He wants me to watch them. He wants me to see that as a parent, as he should, because every morning, good morning, Hudson. Good morning, Hudson. Even though my son is so tired and cranky, he whatever. He doesn't even say anything back. Never gets frustrated, never gets upset, and then gives me a nod. That's our routine every morning. Do you know, after 6 years of taking my kid to that school, how reinforced I am into the leadership and credibility of this man to lead this school? It's amazing. And what happens is, when you're present in the parking lot during drop-offs and pickups, you are able to, that's your time for parent ministry. Now, during your weekly program, go on into the church and do your thing, but have somebody else every once in a while take care of your responsibilities in the kid room, and be out in the parking lot during drop-offs and or pickups, and utilize that time. Number one, you get to know the parents who aren't coming to your church, that don't share your faith and are just dropping off their kids. You get to know them. But then number two, you get that chance to own the parking lot. And hey, can you roll down your window a second? I just wanted you to know something. I saw Randall tonight. There was a kid in there that didn't have any friends. He was new, scared to death. And then I actually saw Randall, without anybody telling him to, go over and shake that guy's hand. That is so not normal for a teenager to do. I can't believe it. Great job, Mom. You are raising an incredible young man. Way to go, guys. We are cheering y'all on. Thank you for letting us have a piece of Randall tonight. Thank you for letting us some of his schedule. I know he's busy. Can't wait to see y'all next week.
More gold from Jeremy Lee right there.
No, man, seriously. It is the way
stuff
to make it happen. We have 15 seconds. What do you want to talk about? I just glanced at your clock.
Let me ask you this. This is going to be an uncomfortable question, but
how many questions do we get out? We got like 3 questions.
Yeah, something like that. How can you know if you are the difficult parent?
Boom. How can you know if you're the difficult parent? So good. And I would say this. I think you can know that if, when you're talking to a minister or treating a minister and you are speaking to them as if they are your employee, because maybe of your power and influence in the church, or maybe because of the amount of money you give to the church, you need a check in your spirit as a parent that you don't perceive that you have some kind of position on top of. Another thing is when you're judging the minister, let me put it this way. I have tons of parent ministry members that join us just because they're in their 20s and they're like, I don't even know. I know I should be reaching parents, but I have no idea how to reach parents, because they look at me, I don't have kids, and they look at me like I'm an idiot. And they feel like I have nothing to say. So I'm coming to you to help with that. Or I have a lot of members that are single and they say, you know what, I'm not married, and so parents think I'm a threat to the opposite sex. I don't know how to deal with capturing the trust of parents. Please help me. Or just in general, I'm too old. I can't connect anymore with the kids, and then the parents think I'm out of touch. I'm too young. The parents think I don't have any wisdom or anything to say. So if in my spirit I'm judging the youth minister instead of really just trying to partner with him and see him as a legitimate resource for the spiritual development of my child, which should be my main concern, then I'm a difficult parent.
Wow, that is good. I'm going to go back and listen to this because I want to go back and take notes, because the stuff you said, again, small things that are very practical that can change a ministry. Good stuff. I'm still processing everything, and I probably will be for the next week.
Oh, thank you, brother.
Man, thank you for sharing this stuff. This is, if no one else listens to this, this is good for me to hear, but I know a lot of people are going to be listening to this, and they're going to be helped by this. So, man, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
It's fun to finally make it as a guest. You know, it only took me 100 and some episodes for them to run out of people and be like, who are we going to do? Oh, hey, we can interview you, bald guy.
Well, after 100 more, let's do it again.
That's fair. That's fair. Thank you, David. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Splink is a simple way to help families in your church link together spiritually. It comes as a free weekly email with ideas that parents can use to have fun, make memories, and talk with their kids. Those teachable moments give moms and dads opportunity to share spiritual truths and life lessons. And no matter how busy life is, there's always time to Splink. Share d6family.com with the parents in your ministry so they can sign up today to start receiving free weekly Splink.
See, my Superman music was very appropriate, Jeremy. You just killed it. I love it, man.
Stop it.
Man, I love it. How is it that... Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask one interview question.
Uh-oh.
Let's say somebody doesn't have your personality. I mean, when the part that I've been attracted and always admired about you is your people skills. I mean, I just can't imagine you bumping into somebody that's difficult that you don't turn into a friend.
Oh, there's a list.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And let's don't call them out.
Okay,
because
okay. Fair enough.
We've all agreed to just love each other and move on, but there's a list of people for sure.
But I think there is probably 50%, I'm gonna be generous here, that do not have your people skills. Tell them how to deal with to have that initial approach when they want to react negatively. How do you when they don't have your set of skills? Answer that one question. And
I guess I'll just reiterate the point that because it's just so simple and basic. Parents want to be heard. And, 2 ears, 1 mouth, shut the mouth, open the ears, and let them have their say. And once you accomplish that, that is not a personality trait. That is not a people skill. Well, I guess it is a people skill, but...
it's a learned skill for sure, that you don't have to have a rebuttal for everything, right?
Yeah, let them have their say. And then, like we talked about, take a pause and say, hey, I want to pray and think about this, and I'll get back to you. What that does is it lets everybody calm down. I have sons that are athletes. Just about every sport they sign up for, there's a parent meeting. And just about every coach says this. They say, hey, at some point you're going to get really mad at me. During the game, I'm going to ask that we have a 24-hour rule where you don't address me about it until 24 hours. That protects both of us. I get to calm down, you get to calm down, and we probably can discuss the issue more than let out the emotion. And
that's worth the price of the interview right there.
That applies perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
So listen to them, let them have their say, and then say, let me pray and think about this, and come back at least 24 hours later with whatever response you need to say. Gives you time to think about it.
Awesome. Great insight. Thank you.
Well,
that helps all of us who do not have your charisma.
Now, next week, speaking of great insight, we have Valerie Bell. Help set up that episode for us.
Absolutely.
You're going to be doing the interview.
I am. I will continue to do a handful along the way. Valerie's been a good friend, great leader for Awana. She and my close friend, Matt Markins, work together, and they're doing some amazing work. And one of the areas they're looking at is the shifting landscapes within the church world. And so I began to ask her about what does this look like when the church is struggling in this shifting landscape, and how do we make a difference in there? And so she's going to bring a little bit of research into this, bring some practicality into it. And if you've ever heard Valerie, she is generally a soft-spoken powerhouse, meaning she doesn't come across harsh, but her content is just spot on. And that's what our people are going to most enjoy.
Well, we have that interview coming up for you next week. Thanks again. Just a reminder, we talked about this earlier. John D. Forrest has a new book out called Fight Like Your Life Depends on It. That can be found on d6family.com. So if you missed that, or if you've forgotten, go check that out. Open up a tab, go to d6family.com, check that out, and check out our episode next week. Thank you guys for listening and being with us. Hope you have a great week of ministry.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.